And the title of this talk today is going to be Inferring Coupling Between Brain Regions from Synthetic EEG Data Using Graph Neural Networks. If you're wondering, coupling is a subtype of connectivity. So one of the standard approaches to estimate coupling these days in general is that we need EEG data. And then we also need this forward model. So we need the anatomy, and we need to define the dipole locations as well as the electrode locations. And then through physical modeling, we do some simulations, how the electromagnetic waves propagate to actually get this projection from the sources to the brain. And this is this is like a general equation, how to do this. So if we have data and the sources and then the projections, if we have the sources and the forward model, how the sources are projected, then we can get what happens outside the brain. But on the other hand, if we are interested in the source activity, so because normally we have EEG data, we measure it, but we want to find the source activity, we cannot do this using just a simple equation because it's an ill-post problem. There is many more sources in the brain than there is channels outside, so we have to do some optimization, and we use optimization algorithms to do that. And they use different constraints to solve the problem, and then we can get such source resolved activity, which can be then averaged to nodes, and we can do some connectivity analysis on that. But this has many assumptions inside what we do. Okay, we need a 3D anatomy template. So normally EEG studies don't usually do MRI scans as well, so this is problematic. We need to define how the conductivities, for example. There's many hyperparameters we have to tune, or we sometimes not tune them. And the last but not least, also, this is a linear model, so we actually assume that the sources are linearly projected to the outside. And these are all assumptions that can bias our results at the end. So the question is here, can you do source localization without underlying a physical model? And there is this funny meme I really like. No, you can just solve everything by matrix multiplication without proper math physics. And then there comes deep learning gradient descent and says, brr, I don't care because it works, right? It can work. And we were inspired by this paper here. It's not the only one, but what they do is they use deep neural networks to directly go from the data from the EEG data to the sources without any physics, let's say. And they also show this. In the paper they have nice visualizations how the method works. I will not explain their method. You can look at the paper, but I'll focus on what we did today. So. We tried to do connectivity estimation using graph neural network approaches. So not just source localization, but just let's find the sources that are connected together. And for that, I don't know if you can see, but the approach is like this. So we have some time series, let's say 128 channels. And each of the time series in this out of 128, it goes through LSTM. So this is a recurrent neural network that captures the trends in the data, and we don't do it for the whole time series, but only for 200 time points, and then the next 200 time points. And then we get these representations of the data, which are then embedded in such graph, and the graph is created based on the EEG source EEG locations. So it's actually XYZ positions, and the weights of these graphs are the distances between the channels. So these are the two important properties that we then put to so how the graph neural network is created. And then we have some dimensionality changes. So we have an additional layer here to give us at the end the output. So the prediction, which is a vector of 68 numbers. Why 68? Maybe I'll show it here. Well, because we chose the atlas. I'll go back. Because we chose the atlas with 68 nodes. So this is one of the standard atlases. Yeah, this is basically the same thing. I just want to say here that when we get this labor prediction, we compare it to the actual true data, which we simulated. So we actually have the ground truth, and then we compute the root mean squared error between those two vectors. Yeah, okay, so I mentioned that we used the simulated data to assess the method. How we do this is like this general approach. So we need some anatomy and the atlas with 68 regions that I was mentioning before. And then, so this is where we put our activity, and activity is the simulation of coupled Kuromoto oscillators. So these are phase oscillators, which we actually then also give the amplitude by wrapping them into the sine functions. And so at the end, we get such activity. For example, here is time, and here we have regions, and different regions are active with a certain frequency, and some of them are just bursts. So we have also these negative examples, and the others are actual couplings. So some regions are coupled, and this coupling activity is the only thing that then. These are the labels on which a graph neural network is then trained on. Yeah, and then if we combine the anatomy and dynamics, we get EEG data, which is then passed to graph neural networks. Okay, so there is many other methods in the field how to do this connectivity analysis. We heard a lot about them yesterday from the first symposium. So correlation is like a classical one. So I grouped them a little bit here. So these would be like classical statistical methods. This would be information theory methods. This would be some model-based methods. So we also already have some prior assumptions. And then we can also have I put here graph neural networks because this is what we are trying on, and there's also symbolic regression that we could use. This is another machine learning approach, which we also work in the lab with, but I will not talk about this today. If somebody is interested, can ask me later. So to compare our graph neural network approach with other methods, we used correlation, phase lag index, transfer entropy. Yeah, and that's it for now. We just conducted the last experiments before coming to the conference. So these are just preliminary results, but what I'm showing you here is the error. The error between our ground truth labels and the actual and the estimated connectivity that methods estimated. And here we have correlation, transfer entropy, and directed phase lag index. So these are these three. And we have two groups. One of them is, so here I actually, for these methods, I computed the error on original data as well, because I wanted to see how the inverse modeling actually corrupts this estimation. And you can see that actually for correlation, we have a really huge drop in performance after we just project first to the EEG and then do source reconstruction back. In ideal world, we would have to have this same, but it's not, right? Because we have this ill-posed problem in optimization algorithms. And then, so our graph neural networks looks really promising. We actually didn't do it on source estimation, but on actual real EEG data. But I didn't want to make another row here. But yeah, as I said, these are preliminary results. Maybe one day I can show you something more. Just to a quick show how this kind of looks like the actual result, not just the error. So, but this is correlation. And you can see how when it's a high activity, it means that there's high coupling, or the method estimates high coupling. And you can see the differences when the data from the original sources and then data from the estimated sources look like. So it's a complete mess. This is also, the advantage of graph neural networks, let's say. And this is another method, but I will not go into it right now, maybe. I can just show. It's also, you can also see a big difference, and you see it's also, there are some correct coupling, but there's also a lot of noise. Yeah, so in the future work, because we have a lot still to do, we want to extend the number of models for data generation. So I told you we simulated the data using Kuramoto oscillators. There's many other models that are much more biophysically based. So for example, Wilson-Cowan model, Janssen-Reed model, and others. We will definitely try that, and also with that extend our data sets. We want to include time delays between regions in the models, because that's also how the actual brain dynamics looks like. We want to change graph neural network objective to also return a graph of couplings, because I told you now it just returns a vector of 68 labels. So it just says whether a certain lesion is coupled or not, but it doesn't actually tell us to which region is coupled. And we have to extend this to actually return, so that the graph neural network will actually also return us a different graph of 68 by 68, for example, connectivity matrix. We want to increase the resolution, not just 68 networks, let's go to 500, let's go to thousands. This is also an advantage of neural networks, because this scalability is not such a big issue. We can also go to more. And also compare networks to other actually better state-of-the-art methods that I didn't include now. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you to my team, the Department of Knowledge Technologies at Josef Stefan Institute, and especially to Boško, with who we are working on this, and he is actually the main contributor to the graph neural networks. Yeah. Thank you.